Hey there everyone, Rambling Collector here, and welcome back to another book review. So, let me start off by saying this. I know that I just reviewed Death Note a couple of days ago, the entire manga series. But, there's something new Death Note related that I want to tell you all about real fast. That being a spin-off novel called L Changed the World, written by M. And if you're wondering, I have tried to look for the actual name of this author. Believe me, I have scoured looking for the name. Nothing has come up. So essentially, they are full-blown anonymous. But a lot of you are wondering, wait a minute, there's a Death Note novel? Or for those of you who have been around in the Death Note fandom for a while, you probably already know about this. But, to put it simply for those who don't. So L Change the World is essentially a spin-off what-if novel that is actually adapted from a series of live-action movies of Death Note where it features a very alternate story. So they tell the original Death Note story, but however, the main change is that, first of all, L is able to finally catch Light as Kira. But by this time, Light actually dies in the second film. But this is essentially a spin-off film that talks about what would happen afterwards. Because apparently a major plot point in the films is that L actually wrote his own name in the Death Note to try and catch Kira. And his cause of death? He dies peacefully after 23 days. That is the point that he made in the Death Note. And that is a major thing, first of all, that throughout this entire piece, it is a major recurring theme, is that L himself is on a time limit to fulfill his final case. Not the Kira case, but another one that involves an old friend of his, or should I say the daughter of an old friend of his, of a famous doctor who studied and tried to cure various dangerous viruses across the world. Only now, a terrorist organization has gained control of a level 4 virus that, when spread, could cause a worldwide pandemic due to their plans to try to cull the human population as a way to kind of bring the world back to its own natural balance and state that it should have been until humankind grew out of control. And that is L's final case that he has to solve throughout this book, which, though short, only 188 pages, it enthralls you from start to finish, and I absolutely love a lot of the features of this book. For instance, the cover art alone is immaculately well done. Especially this scene here where you have L surrounded by sweets, and the colors are all bright and really catch the eyes. Whereas for the back cover, it's a very different story. It features much warmer colors, with L closing his eyes peacefully, surrounded by chess pieces, which is a nice contrast to the front cover. And I feel like that's actually a story piece here. A very nice little way of nodding to the fact that L, his time is coming. His time is almost up, and he has to make do with it by trying to solve his final case with the amount of days that he has left. But one of the big things that really is poignant throughout this book is the fact that this is a whole story of confronting death. Throughout it all, L knows that he's on a time limit. So, during the first couple of chapters, it seems like he's just getting his affairs in order, solving various cases that people had come to him for, getting them all done, one after the other. Like, he literally has an entire trash bin of cell phones, each marked with different leaders and countries that he is solving one by one as a way of him trying to get his final affairs in order. The only one he doesn't throw away is the President of the United States. A cell phone with a direct line to the President of the United States of freaking America. That speaks volumes right there. But I really liked how this whole thing involves him trying to essentially save the world from a terrorist organization that has a weapon that is possibly worse than the Death Note. Well, not really, but you kind of get the point. But I do like how, throughout it all, L is constantly seen to possibly use the Death Note, only for it to be an absolute ruse towards the end of the book. And it was very interesting. I really thought we were going to see L use the Death Note, this paragon of justice that opposed Light in his means of doing exactly what he was doing, and he is tempted to use a killer's weapon. It's a very interesting way to look at it. But, more than that, I really liked how this whole thing had L sort of playing games with everybody. Really putting everything into place, like pieces on a chessboard, or solving a puzzle. And there are references a bunch to the other main characters. Of course, we hear about Light, despite him being post-mortem. We hear L's inner thoughts on Light, about how Light was not only his greatest rival as the mass murderer Kira, but was also his first ever friend. And we see that in the fact that he actually holds the watch that Light had gotten from his father, although that L now wears as a memento of his first and possibly ever friend. Or at least first and only true friend. And it's a really sad thing to think about that at the end of the day, L had to essentially stop his first ever friend from becoming a mass murderer. It's a sad thing to think about, and more than anything though, watching L confronting his mortality during his final days, it was very interesting. Like, at one point, when they're traveling through the countryside after L has had his name besmirched, he is now on the run from the FBI, after people have used his credentials to threaten the president with the possibility of writing his name down in the death note after forcing him to launch nuclear missiles. So L is now on the run. They're running through the countryside, and for the first time in his life, L fully appreciates the stars in the night sky. We see his cold, logical facade gradually seem to fall a little bit as we see more emotions poke to the surface, which to me, who had only ever seen the anime or read the manga, I was really surprised by that, to see L exhibiting more human emotions. It was very interesting. I'll say that much. So I really enjoyed this for giving me more of L's perspectives and thought processes, especially with how he interacted with others around him. Whether it was an FBI agent who had been sent to retrieve the death note from him, or a member who had been an assistant doctor to his former friend that had been killed by this terrorist organization, and whom he now had to protect the daughter of. But it turns out this other terrorist member was actually a former member of Whammy's house. And that is one thing that really comes up a lot, is that a lot of the folks that we see here in this book, they're all related to Whammy's house. They either were orphans who were raised there, or the possible outcropping of agents. Hell, one of his major rivals was actually known as K. This character being Dr. Kujo, whom we later learned was actually Agent K, with L being her successor. And wow, was that ever a twist. But I will say one thing I definitely enjoyed was L's kind of snarky personality. Like at one point, when he's chasing down a plane which has a bunch of contaminated people on it, making it a massive virus bomb that is planning to be flown over to the United States of America as part of a revenge plot by Dr. Kujo, he is clinging onto the wing of an airplane, being threatened by a terrorist who is wielding an umbrella and a pistol at him, and he looks this woman dead in the eyes and just goes, "Who do you think you are, Mary Poppins?" Which, I'm not gonna lie, for whatever reason, the sheer absurdity of it and the snarkiness that L portrayed here really made me laugh a lot. But, oh my god, I swear, knowing now that there's actually Death Note novels that are based off of live-action movies that were made, this tells me that I'm not done with the Death Note universe or the entire series as a whole. I genuinely want to check out these live-action movies sometime and maybe do a review of them. Who knows? You might be able to see that sometime soon. But as for the novels, there's actually another one that I found out about. Besides L Changed the World. Will I do a review about that? You can bet that I will, because I'm very interested to read more now. Especially after knowing that there is more to the Death Note universe. But again, watching L having this countdown placed over his head, for he has 23 days to crack this final case before he can ever rest easily. It was kind of heart-wrenching to see, and one of the coolest features, though, about this book is that on the top of it, it's written out like a notebook, but it actually has the days marked out. For instance, as you go through the book here, if you'll watch, you'll see this black mark here, which shows L's time limit of 23 days. As you go through the book, however, the mark moves, which really adds a sense of urgency to the book as you read. And again, despite it being only 188 pages, the sense of urgency you get from this really keeps you invested in wanting to read more. So for all of you who are Death Note fans, I would definitely recommend picking up this book. If you want a nice cool hardback from the perspective of L as he tries to solve his final case before his own death, then I definitely would recommend it. If you want just another piece of Death Note, oh, go for it. If you're a novel reader like me, you'll definitely enjoy this, especially if you want a cool what-if scenario type of story. But another big feature I want to talk about real fast before I end this video is I loved the relationship that was actually shown between L and Watari. So a lot of us who've watched the anime pretty much know that Watari was essentially L's butler. But we also know that he was the main head caretaker of what is known as Wammy's house. And I like how Wammy's house is like a reoccurring thing with a bunch of characters who are all related to that one singular orphanage, that it's not only an orphanage for young children, but also a training center for highly skilled individuals who have either a different mentality or a different way of thinking, and it shows them training to use that brain to outsmart and solve crimes, or help the world in various different ways. I liked that as a way of building a better future for mankind through these special children. It was kind of cool in that perspective. But one thing that really stuck out was L and Watari's relationship with each other. They weren't just partners solving crimes together. He wasn't just the butler to provide L with his daily dose of sweet wits. My God, that guy has a major sweet tooth. I don't know where the hell he puts it all or how the hell he has not contracted diabetes. Apparently, according to him, his brain needs sugar. Like, I can kind of get that, but bruh, some of the sugar you were taking was way too much, even for me, a major sweets addict. But, going back to that, we actually do see a father-son relationship with L and Watari. Because during the final pages of the book, right before L goes on to his death, he is playing a chess match with Watari in his head. And he apparently has never been able to beat Watari in a chess match ever. And I love that moment when L becomes this vulnerable child asking if he's fulfilled Watari's expectations. And his caretaker, his father, in that moment, reassures him that he has more than done so countless times. And that really warmed my heart, because there's always that one final fear as you're facing death, whether it's, have I done enough? Will I be able to go in peace? Or do I have any unfinished business? There's always those nagging questions right before death. But L being given that reassurance, it was heartwarming to see that. But before I close this video off, you guys, one thing, I'm not kidding when I say this, I'm going to be diving into those Death Note live action movies just to see how different of a perspective it was. And more than that, just to see more Death Note, to really dive further into the rabbit hole than I probably should. Oh well, here we go again. And this has been really fun to actually talk more and have another piece of what was essentially the very first manga that I ever read, back when I was still a huge newbie to anime, and I'll continue to call myself that until I've watched at least 100 series. Only then will I consider myself at least properly seasoned. But anyways, if you guys like this video, feel free to leave a like, comment me your thoughts down below, or subscribe if you're interested for more future content like this. If you have any book suggestions, please feel free to leave them as well in the comments down below. Or if you're a fan of Death Note and you have never heard of this book before, let me know what you thought of this review and if you will be able to check it out for yourself. And if you're wondering about a ranking for it, I'm going to give this book a solid 10 out of 10. This left me invested that I was reading it back to back to back for 3 days straight, just to make sure, because I wanted to know more. And again, you guys, if you want to check out more of the manga or light novels that I have read in the past, I will leave a link to the playlist here at the end of the video. Or if you want to see some of the other regular books that I've covered, then I'll leave a link to that playlist as well. If not, well, I hope you all will enjoy this video, and I will see you all in the next book review. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now. Have a great day, fellow readers.